How you doing, everybody? Drew Bees, Apiary here. Today we're going to be going over something I want to work on before going into our fall/winter. Today we're going to be working on inner covers, making them compatible for these round high top feeders. You can kind of see in the photo, but basically this style of feeder. Reason being, I want to try something different this year. Last year I overwintered essentially a single deep. I didn't do a double deep or a deep in a super as far as overwintering. And basically what I was doing is I was using sugar feed on the inner cover. So basically bees were crawling up through the middle where the ventilation would be going up to the top cover, and they were just kind of walking around as they do and just eating dry sugar. I wouldn't say they were going through it very quickly, but I could tell they were occupied doing that. And so this winter, I kind of wanted to try a little bit more organized of a way to feed, either dry sugar or, some sort of like a candy, something or other, so that way it's a little bit neater, more organized up top. And one of the ideas I'd seen was from Barnyard Bees, which I'll leave a link below as to what he had listed on there, was a way to, while using the top round feeder, is basically kind of carving it up a little bit, adding some ventilation holes, and we'll go over that today. I'm sure his website or his shop, he can probably explain how he did it, but just watching his video, which I thought was extremely helpful, I wanted to prepare at least the inner covers that I have for my high bodies, so that I'm not overwintering any nucs this year. So and to be honest, these round feeders are large enough that I don't even think they would fit on an inner cover for a 5-frame nuke. I think they would be too big on the side. So I don't know if they sell a smaller one, which I'm sure they do, or if there's something that you need to do to make it fit a little bit better, but at least as far as I could tell, I have no idea. Anyways, it's not gonna be a problem to me because, again, I'm only overwintering either singles, or I think this year what I'm gonna be doing is doing a deep and a super, hoping that the super is loaded with honey, just to give them a little bit better of a start going into the spring. Because this past year, my bees, they made it obviously as just a single body, which is all I did, but I'd rather not have them get close to the brink, and I very well could have just gotten lucky, and they said I'd rather not get lucky and just have them better prepared. So anyways, what we'll basically be doing is I'm just going to show you what I did, and again, I'm basically doing the same thing that they showed on Barnyard Bees, which is just basically taking this, cutting it open a little bit more, and I'll go over some of the equipment I'm going to do. You can already see a hole pre-drilled right here. We'll go over that in a second and show you from there how it's going to look. But show you up close, this is a finished product. So like I said, this is the feeder. You can see the holes already kind of cut right here. To be honest, I just used a razor blade to do that. I didn't even use a hole saw, and I just kind of traced ahead of time. So basically what I did was, with the lid off, I just kind of lined this up, and then anywhere that there was space where I saw the wood, I just kind of traced that and made it a little bit bigger. So right here you can kind of see the wood in the picture. Actually, it's a little too tough to see from there, but you see that wood sticking out on the sides? Basically took a pen and just sort of in there just marked the edges, so I kind of knew exactly where to start with. And then once that was marked, just took my razor blade, started carving like so, and then once I had it wide enough that this fit, which in this example it does, it's like a perfect fit, so it'll be good to go. And again, I'll most likely be feeding some sort of a dry something or other in here, so that during the winter months they can just come up here, not be exploring the inner cover, and I won't have to make it a mess like I did last year where dry sugar was just everywhere. This should be a little bit easier to work with the bees. So let me show you a quick equipment list and we'll start to work on it so you can kind of see how I did it. As far as equipment list, the only things you guys need to know: hammer, I'll show you why, little razor or some other way. You can use like a woodworking knife if you want to. to actually cut open that circle. Again, I think it's easier than the hole saw. Here's my drill with my actual hole saw bit, and this right here is kind of like a 3/4 of an inch, somewhere between a 1/2 and 3/4 of an inch. It's not a full inch. I didn't need it to be too big. I didn't want over ventilation up top, so that's a much smaller piece. Staple gun. Obviously your staples. These staples, I'm using, this is like a, what is this? An Arrow, looks like accepts T20, T25 type staple. So here's some T25s, these are just 3/8. And to be honest, these 3/8 are kind of a little too big of a length, but if you can find something smaller than that, I recommend it because the inner covers are pretty thin. And you'll see when you're stapling the final component, which is some sort of like a mesh screen. This is kind of like a, almost like a aluminum mesh type of deal. Stiff enough that the bees aren't gonna chew through it, but firm enough that it should hold in place. I just bought this again from Lowe's. You can use this, just cut it up into little bits with scissors and use that as your mesh for your little ventilation holes. So that's all you need as far as equipment goes. It really won't take you that long depending on how many of these you gotta do. I'm only doing 4 today, and as you can see, I've already completed 1. So I'm just gonna show you one more so you guys get the idea. You don't need to see me do all 4 of them, and we'll go from there. So like I said, we'll start with our example. Obviously, I've already got one of the ventilation holes already drilled, so you don't need to see me. You'll just see me do one, carve this out real quick, staple it, and then we'll be done, and we'll just talk about a few other points. But again, basically all I do is I take one of these just to get kind of my bearings as to where I want this to sit in the middle, so that way I know kind of where to start. Just carve, I'm gonna carve, I draw something to work with to start, all right, something like that. And I'm gonna go a little bit bigger than that. So for the purposes of this video, hold it like that. Take my razor blade, start to carve. It's easier to just kind of whittle the corners like so. Again, you're gonna have to make it a little wider than however you drew it. It's not gonna be pretty unless you're really good at, I guess, carving wood if you have the right knife. All right, I know y'all missed me basically spending several minutes carving out this edge, breaking a corner of my razor blade, which you probably saw in the last video, just working it exactly the way I wanted it to be. Like I said, you probably could use a hole saw for that, but you have to keep it really stable. I'm just gonna start putting the second hole. Like I said, we already got the first hole from the hole saw right there. So let's do the second one real quick, and then I'll show you the mesh, and then we should be done. We'll talk about some other stuff. You guys can probably tell I'm doing this on top of just some cardboard, just that way I'm not pushing through, because again, this is super thin, as you know, and I don't want to damage anything below it, so I'm just using that as like support as I drill through. So now we've got 2 holes, 1 on each side. The last step, and I've already pre-cut them, is to take our mesh pieces, which I just gotta find them. Here they are. All right, we're gonna have 1 on each side. Take our staple gun and begin. And I said I'll usually do anywhere from 4 to 6. In this case, I'll do 6 just to be safe. Actually, let's see. Now what the heck, we'll do 8. unless I mess it up like that one. Probably do a slightly bigger one. I just eyeballed that, cut that out real quick. Let's flip this over. Do this side. And then all I'm gonna do is I'm going to take my hammer, just try to nail those pieces down a little bit. Don't really need to, but this way they're a little flatter. But again, that's our finished product. So, I said if you can use slightly smaller nails, or I shouldn't say nails, slightly smaller staples, do so. I just used what I had, but that's pretty much it. So like I said, this will fit now into there. This will still be able to be dropped on top of the hive. They'll still be able to ventilate while being fed over the winter. All right, that's pretty much it. I'm mainly doing this way too. I said I want to try something different. I'm kind of done with the high top feeders like these right here. Mentioned that in one of my other videos. Again, they're not the worst. I just wouldn't use these any other time other than after harvesting honey. Because obviously in the spring, don't really need to feed so long as there's a nectar flow going on. But right after I pulled my supers, I threw these on. And you put the sugar water in there. I think I mentioned before, sometimes I've had some issues with this inner mesh, but basically I wanted to try something different for the winter because I just don't see how these will work past fall. Like I could probably get away with using these for at least another month or so here in Georgia. I wanted to just keep putting in some like 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 sugar syrup, so that way they're getting that instead of the normal 1-to-1 that I normally would have fed in the late spring slash summer after pulling the supers. But like I said, I could put in some sugary syrup for the next month or so, and I'm going to continue to do that with these. But after that, like I said, once we get here into the fall, I'm pretty much going to transfer all the way over to these for the winter, and basically just put these on, you know, put a super lid on top of that, so that way this will all be covered on the sides, you know, top cover on top of that, and then they should be good. My goal is to try to put all my 4 of my hives that I have at this current location as a deep and a super with honey going into the winter. All right, so that's pretty much it. I hope that was helpful, even though I know it's pretty self-explanatory to do it yourself. I just kind of want to show the equipment. I know that you could probably buy these to be made, and that's fine. I wouldn't say don't do that if you don't have the time, but these were pretty easy to make, especially if you have pre-existing equipment, and I don't see a reason why not to turn them into this if you're going to be using your inner covers for something similar going into the winter. All right, so it's just my thoughts. If you have any questions or concerns about that, let me know.